Hey folks, Dan from D&N Custom Creations. Another real quick MR-1 video today. I still don't have any real work to do, so I'm just playing around, making a few little small mods to it, so that when I finally get some real work, hopefully it'll go a little easier. I'll bring you in and show you a couple of things that I've done, and we'll talk about them. Okay, first thing, this is the last Titan exercise. This is called the 10M. And so I finished machining this one. You know, one of the things, I really like using them. I've learned a lot of different operations that I probably wouldn't have otherwise. They're pretty diverse, and so it gives me an opportunity to learn some new tool paths. And hopefully some of these features will show up in other parts that I finally get to do for real, and I'll kind of understand how to go ahead and machine them. The thing is on that Titan stuff is they'll do the one side, but they never do the op 2, the second side. Now most of the times the op 2s, you're just cutting off the hat on the bottom that you use to hold it into the vise. But this thing is, I don't know if you can tell, it's tapered. And so here's the bottom side. You do the bottom side first because it's flat and it has these little standoffs. But then op 2, you got to turn it over, and that's the taper side. And so they don't tell you how to do that. And so I had to fart around with all kinds of ideas and trying to get it to work. And I seem to figure out pretty good, except I've got some problems. I'm not showing you the bad side. There's the bad side. Not exactly sure why that happened. But regardless, I mean, it seemed to do a pretty good job on top. I just had some problems here on the side. And since you had to chamfer everything, I mean, you had to locate it pretty much perfectly from the bottom side, which is op 1. When you get to op 2, all of these things have to be in the right place in order to chamfer them. And they looked pretty good, so I think that was okay. So I'm not real sure why I got boogered up the sides. Regardless, so that's the 10M exercise. I'm done with the Titan stuff. Now we're ready to start something for real. All right, I'm going to move you onto the machine, show you a couple little mods I've done. Okay, looking at the machine, when I got this machine, again, if you remember, this is built by Langmeyer. When it came in and I did the surfacing the base plate, I used a 1/2-inch end mill, and I mean, it looked great. I mean, it was cutting everywhere, so I had no low spots. So I'm doing these Titan 1 through 10. Now I came back and looked at my nod and tilt to see what they look like, and they were off. It was like within a 3-inch distance. I could be in the nod. I could be off 0.005 of an inch. So I didn't know what the problem was. But when I checked my base plate and you know, went around it with a indicator, I saw some high and low spots, and so I decided this time I'm going to come with a fly cutter, because that's a good indication on these little ridges. You know, if you can catch your finger on there, that's a good indication whether you got some tilt and nod problems. Actually, more nod problems in this, the way I was cutting the direction. So I cut that, and I've got it down now, looking pretty good. So I'm now getting ready to put the so Machine Works folks, the SMW, Saunders Machine Works, we're getting ready to put their pallet back on and mounting the vise and seeing if everything indicates, and I'll do a final check on my nod and tilt and see what they look like. I'll show you the mod that I did to adjust tilt from what the folks on the forum had suggested, and it seemed to work pretty good. So I've just put this the base plate on, and I'm checking the trueness of that in the Y direction. Well, we're going to run this back and forth. And so we're, you know, less than 0.5 Now, when I put the vise on, I need to check it in the X direction, because that's what's critical. It's not necessarily the way the pallet is on the bottom. Hopefully the vise is trued up to this pallet so that when I put it in there, it'll be perpendicular. We'll find out here in a minute. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and we'll come back and do this measurement, and then I'm going to show you the mods. So you just saw me measure the trueness of the the SMW base plate or fixture plate, and it was true to the X or the Y axis of the machine. But as I mentioned, what's really important is making sure that your vice jaw is true to the X axis. And I thought it would be a lot better. But let's take a look here when I transition back and forth. So there we are, about half a thousandths under. And now we're almost a thousandths over. And that's only in a little over 3 inches. So I'm going to have to loosen that fixture plate now and adjust to make sure that the jaw face is true in the X direction. So let me do that. I'll bring you back and show you the result. Okay, I've adjusted the fixture plate now so that the vise is square in the X. You can see here. So now I'm pretty good. I'm going to tighten all the base plate or the fixture plate down now for the rest of the screws. Okay, got the vise together and put a 1, 2, 3 block in it, and let's see what we do. So pretty happy with that. Let's try the other face of the 1, 2, 3 block. So the previous one was tilt. Let's look at the nod here. All right, I think that's good in the jaws of this vise, so I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, one thing that's always bugged me is when you wanted to work on the spindle and stuff, this cover, basically you had to wind up letting it hang on the cables and so forth. So I did a couple of things. Let me see if you're in the picture. Yeah, I cut out this notch, and then I just made, I put some thread inserts in so that I can, close that back up again so that the hoses can't come out or the cabling can't come out. But that allows me just to take that thing off. The other thing I did is for all of these bolts around the outside that had captive nuts, I just have gone and put some thread inserts in those so that I could just screw directly in. I don't have to worry about trying to hold onto a nut on the back side. So let's see. Oh yeah, I wanted to show you the way that I adjust tilt, and stole this from some guys on the forum, and it worked real well. So on the side here, on this plate, I have drilled and tapped 2 holes. In my particular case, those are 5 millimeter, and there's on both sides. There's the 2 on this side with the nuts on it. And so basically, when you're adjusting your tilt, this direction, by adjusting the top and the bottom on each side, you can bring that tilt in dead nuts on, or pretty good. And so I've done that. That's what it was helped me with that. Now the nod, the direction, this direction on your spindle. Mine wasn't pretty good, so I didn't have to fart with it too much. Obviously, you guys that have built your machines know that you have to shim down here or up in here to get your nod right. However, I see some people on the forum talking about actually shimming behind this where it contacts the plate behind that spindle block, or where the bearing is. So that's probably how I would do it. I haven't had to, but I think from talking to guys on the forum, that would be an easy thing to do. Just take some grease like you do on the other ones. Put your figure out what you need for a shim. You might have to do it multiple times, but it's pretty easy to do. you know, just unbolting the bolt from the back, and then these two bolts up here, and you know, just sticking that shim either top or bottom, depending on what you want to do with that nod, to get your nod back in a good position. Okay, let me button this thing up. I'll show you a couple more little things. Okay, last part of this little video is a couple of things I've done to the base plate to try and eliminate a lot of swarf getting into the holes, the drill holes. So McMaster Car sells these little plastic set screws, 1/4 set screws, and I've gone through and put one in each of the holes at the base plate that doesn't have the Saunders Machine Work base plate on it. And you know, they still have a little bit of a hole on the back side, obviously for your hex wrench to go into, but it's much smaller than the 1/4, and without those, that hole is deep enough that the stuff can really get down, you know, maybe 1/2 inch or so, and it's kind of a pain to get out. So they seem to work pretty good. Then being plastic, you know, if you get some stuff in them and you know have a problem, you can just dig them out. Then the last thing on this Saunders Machine Work, where I use the low profile vices, I've got these small, I got them from a company called widget.com. They're just 1/2 inch plugs, and I put them in all of the open holes. Now, they're a little bit hard to get out without, you know, boogering them up a little bit, but I got 100 of them for 13 bucks. And here's what they, you know, look like on them. So they're just little plugs. Now, they sit up above the hole a little bit, whereas the ones that Saunders Machine Work sell, they're flush. So, you know, they look really good. And I understand that you can use a little pick to get them out, although some people have complained that in taking them out, you damage them and then, you know, they won't sit flush anymore. There's, I think 100 of them are for like 24 bucks. So they're not that much more, and they do really look nice, and they're perfectly flush. But anyway, so that's the last things I've done, just to try and keep the chips and stuff so they're a little easier to clean up and, you know, sweep up or whatever. So that's about it. I appreciate you watching the video, and this is Dan from D&N Custom Creations.